Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Ayşe Süberker. With just a few weeks to go before U.S. President Donald Trump leaves the White House, his administration has issued sanctions against key NATO ally Turkey over its purchase of the S-400 air defense system from Russia. The sanctions against Turkey's Presidency of Defense Industries and 4 of its top officials are likely to further strain the already troubled relations between the two countries and come at an important time as President-elect Joe Biden prepares to take office. The two countries are at odds over Turkey's operations in Syria, the conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia, and Ankara's energy exploration in the Eastern Mediterranean. Turkey has strongly condemned the latest U.S. move and says it'll take necessary steps against this grave mistake. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has termed the sanctions disrespectful. And joining me now from Istanbul is Michael Cox. He is a lecturer in political science at Bahcesehir University and a senior advisor at the Global Policy Institute. And also from Istanbul, Hasan Unal. He is a professor of political science and international relations at Maltepe University. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. Good to have you on the program. So, Sean, where is this situation headed to, and how will this impact the decades-old alliance and trust that have been over the years strained under regional disputes?
That's a very interesting question. This whole deal was quite controversial when it was being implemented, mostly because it violated the Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act, which was initially signed into law in July of 2017, and the S-400 deal was not finished and finalized until fall of that year. And there had been pressure applied by both the Obama administration late on into its term and early on in the Trump administration for Turkey to rethink finalizing this deal with Russia. But there were Republicans in Congress that were against it, and it doesn't violate CAATSA directly because that's targeted against Iran, North Korea, and Russia, but ancillary countries that do business with these countries. And it's hard to say how this will move forward in a Biden administration. It almost seems like the Trump administration is doing this on the way out to cause problems for an incoming Biden administration.
Yes, that puts Turkey in the same league with Iran, North Korea, and Russia. That is interesting. Hasan, could you talk to us about the significance of this decision from NATO's standpoint, since Secretary General Stoltenberg said, quote, "I regret that we're in a situation where NATO allies have to impose sanctions on each other," unquote. How has that impacted the alliance already?
Well, it is certainly against the NATO treaty, both the letter and the spirit of the treaty. But on the other hand, this is not the first time that Turkey is being targeted by the United States through sanctions. In 1964, United States pressured Turkey, put pressure as the notorious Johnson letter arrived in Ankara. In 1975, there was a formal arms embargo, again on Turkey. 3 years later, it was the United States administration which had to try to get it lifted through the Congress. So, and there have been tensions and small degree sanctions between the United States and Turkey over arms deals in particular. It's always been a difficult area, and this one is more difficult and more significant because it comes at a time when the world is basically evolving into a multipolar world. The U.S. position is a bit like when looked at from Turkey. Well, okay, there are shops all over the place. You can go and do window shopping, but you'll have to do all your shopping with me. And when you come to do your shopping with me, then
yes,
I've got my whims to impose. So it's not likely to work out in that sense.
So, Sean, who would benefit from this situation the most? Could this push Turkey more to the Russia side, maybe?
Honestly, there are no real benefits to anyone in this agreement. Turkey doesn't benefit because of the sanctions itself. The United States doesn't benefit because it's often seen as a bully in the international community, and especially during the Trump years, where he essentially ignored international engagement, to leave his administration with something like this casts a very poor shadow on the U.S. administration, and it causes a lot of problems for President-elect Biden when he comes into office. Russia might be the only one that benefits from this in the fact that they can increase their sales and they can help support a country that's perceived to be being unfairly attacked. What's also interesting about this, and what's unfair about this, is that Turkey is not the only country that has finalized or is close to finalization of deals to purchase S-400 systems from Russia.
Yes.
We also have Saudi Arabia. We also have India. India's systems will be implemented anytime this month or early next year, the last that I read on it, and the United States has already threatened India with sanctions as well. It's just all around, it's just not a very good situation.
So, Hasan, do you believe Russia has finally drawn an official wedge within the NATO? And some argue that this was a message sent to Russia through Turkey. Would you agree?
Well, I mean, the United States keeps sending messages to Russia and everyone else. I mean, the USA has become something like unilateral sanctions associates. So basically, the United States is applying sanctions to a number of countries, or it will have to. Whether it is going to basically apply sanctions to India remains to be seen, because the United States wants to keep India on board in its fight against China. But by the same token, the United States needs Turkey for a number of purposes, again, in the region. So whether it is going to basically lead to further cracks within NATO alliance, again, remains to be seen. It is up to the Biden administration how to take it from here. If the Biden administration basically intensifies the sanctions, for instance, then it will be a different kettle of fish.
Okay, so Sean, what effect the sanctions would have on Turkey's defense sector? And do you think is there some risk of some European countries being spooked by these measures and be less willing to enter multinational military projects by Turkey?
Well, I don't think there's necessarily a negative impact against Turkey on this. And as far as Turkey's own defense sector, yes, these sanctions will prevent any export licenses from the United States, but it actually might prompt innovation, the development of new technologies, and a greater push towards production of defense weaponry within Turkey, rather than having them rely on foreign powers such as the United States to meet their needs. So in the long run, it actually could be positive if it forces Turkey to turn inwards to rely on their own capabilities and better develop their own capabilities. As for what the impact it will have with NATO and forming military associations with other countries, Europe itself is already experiencing a split between the northern states and the southern states that are part of the EU. There are questions about France and its commitment to NATO and its commitment to the European project. France wants to become a power center, especially now with Brexit imminent, and they're looking for ways to challenge the preeminence of Germany. So NATO itself is not a centered monolithic entity. There are already cracks in the structure of NATO, and I don't think that these type of sanctions necessarily contribute to that in any significant way.
So how, Hasan, how could a further deteriorated relationship with Turkey impact the U.S. interests, especially in the Middle East?
Well, the Turkish-U.S. relations have been going through a number of straits, a number of problems, actually. This is not, for instance, the purchase of the S-400 missiles is not the only issue that is to be tackled by the United States and Turkey. We don't seem eye to eye with each other over a number of problems. For instance, the U.S. support for the PKK-PYD and the U.S. support for the Greater Kurdistan project in the region. If the United States carries on with that policy of carving out a Greater Kurdistan through Iraq, Syria, and inevitably to affect Turkey's territorial integrity, then there is that problem. And since the end of the Cold War, basically, on all the important issues that are very dear to Turkey, we see the United States as almost our adversary. I wouldn't like to use the term, but for instance, take Cyprus. How are we going to resolve the Cyprus problem with the Greek side refusing all the internationally brokered peace plans?
Yes.
And when you tell the United States, well, isn't it being time now to basically consider a two-state solution? They say no. And what about all the states that came out of Yugoslavia, that came out of the Soviet Union? Basically, Czechoslovakia split up into two, and you recognized all the states that came out of it. Well, then the simple answer is, well, Cyprus is different. Why is it different? So basically, we don't seem eye to eye on a number of issues with the United States. But I think my conclusion is that let's not basically push things to the extreme. Instead, the two countries need to get together to reformat the relationship.
That's what I was going to ask, actually, Sean, to you. Despite all differences, as Hasan just mentioned, do you think Biden's arrival could represent an opportunity for a broader reset in relations?
I absolutely do think that the incoming Biden administration would be in a position to reset relations. Even during the Trump administration, we saw Democrats and Republicans alike that were still very much interested in bilateral Turkish-U.S. relations. Senator John Thune, who's the majority whip in the Senate, a Republican from South Dakota, this past June, he actually suggested that the United States use its monies for its military spending to allow the Army to purchase Turkey's S-400 system, thereby absolving Turkey or resolving the issue is a better term to use, resolving the issue, and that they can continue working with Turkey as a partner. Turkey is still a valued partner for the United States. It's just that there has been a communication breakdown between the two countries. But with Antony Blinken as the presumptive Secretary of State and with Joe Biden and his long history with Turkey, he's visited a number of times both as the senator and a vice president. I think there's great potential for re-engagement.
So we'll see about it. Gentlemen, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining us on Straight Talk. It's celebration time in Azerbaijan. The nation is marking the liberation of the city of Shusha last month after 3 decades of Armenian occupation. Shusha plays a significant role in Azerbaijan's history. Its liberation led Armenia to concede defeat in the Nagorno-karabakh conflict and agree to a ceasefire deal. We'll speak to the country's acting culture minister about the importance of the city and the plans for its revival as Azerbaijan's cultural capital. But first, this report by Haydar Abbasi.
It's been almost 30 years since anyone prayed here. This mosque is in the city of Shusha in Nagorno-karabakh. But last month, the occupied territory was liberated by Azerbaijan. The first people to worship here were some of the Azerbaijani soldiers who helped to free the city. Shusha holds great importance for the people of Azerbaijan.
28 yıl yarım Şuşa işgal altındayım. Şuşa'nın Azerbaycan tarihinde xüsusi yeri vardır. Bu bizim qədim tarixi şəhərimizdir. Əsrlər boyu Azərbaycanlılar Şuşada yaşayıb, qurub, yaradıb. Şuşa nəinki Azərbaycanın, bütün Qafqazın incisidir.
Founded in 1752, Shusha is the birthplace of many prominent writers, scientists, politicians, and cultural figures. Known as the cradle of Azerbaijani music, it used to be home to famous composers and musicians. When Azerbaijan was a republic of the Soviet Union, Shusha was also a popular tourist destination. But after war broke out in 1988, Armenian forces illegally took over the city. Tens of thousands of people were killed in the conflict. and hundreds of monuments and cultural artifacts were destroyed. Shusha remained under Armenian control until November, when large parts of Nagorno-karabakh were liberated by Azerbaijan's military. President Aliyev says he wants to re-establish the city as the cultural capital. Beybala Hasanov holds up the keys and title deed to his house in Shusha. He and his family were forced out of the city by Armenian soldiers during the war.
When Shusha is mentioned, clean air, green forests, mountains, ice springs come to mind. Shusha is our everything. I believe that we will return. If I didn't believe it, I wouldn't have kept the title deeds and keys until today. All Azerbaijani people were delighted that Shusha city was taken back.
Hasanov and many other Azerbaijanis had been waiting almost 30 years to return home. And finally, their patience has paid off. Haider Abbasi, Straight Talk.
And joining me now from Baku is Anar Karimov. He is the acting culture minister of Azerbaijan. Mr. Karimov, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. Could you talk to us about the significance of the liberation of Shusha and what kind of an impact it had both on Azerbaijan, Armenia, and the region in general?
Well, thank you very much. Well, let me give you first a brief historical overview of Shusha. The city is built by the first ruler of Karabakh, Panah Ali Khan, in 1752, and it became directly the capital of the Karabakh Khanate. And if you look at the city from the distance, you can clearly see the reasons behind this wise decision by Panah Ali Khan to build this capital, or we call it Shusha Fortress, in this particular place, as it is located in a plateau surrounding in three directions by the high rocks, which makes this city very difficult to approach, to conquer. So it is indeed a very strategical place overlooking all Karabakh. And that's why the liberation of Shusha was an important success and achievement for Azerbaijan. This is a strategical, of course, the importance of Shusha. But let me also highlight its cultural significance for Azerbaijan. Yes. Historically, Shusha used to be a cradle of culture of not only Karabakh, but the whole Azerbaijan. I mean, starting from its Khanate period, prominent thinkers, poets, cultural figures like Molla Panah Vagif, Khurshudbanu Natavand, she was a daughter of the last ruler of Karabakh, Mir Mohsen Nawab, and many other personalities came from Shusha. And they contributed a lot to the development of culture in Azerbaijan, and I would say far beyond the region. And the musical traditions of mugham, carpet making, chogan, horse riding game, all of them recognized by UNESCO, for instance, as an intangible heritage of humanity.
Yes, but and now moving to today, what could you tell us about the current plight of the city? And could you talk to us about the extent of the destruction inflicted by the Armenian forces? And how are you planning to restore like historic monuments and institutions within the region?
Well, when it comes to our plans for future, of course, it's to bring back our people to Shusha. I think who were forcibly expelled due to Armenian occupation. So if people come back, they will definitely bring back their culture and this lost spirit of Shusha, our music, our traditions, and this will, of course, revitalize this holy place for Azerbaijan. Mm-hmm. And, of course, we will restore our mosques. By the way, there were 17 mosques in Shusha, and only 3 of them remain to our days. And, all these 3 mosques, out of these 2 mosques, 2 are almost in destroyed state. So we will definitely restore the tombs, mausoleums, and museums of Shusha. There are a lot of historical places in Shusha, and we plan to present the historical center of Shusha to UNESCO World Heritage List, which will, will give additional visibility and makes this city as internationally known.
We're going to talk about that, Mr. Karimov. But now, on the other hand, Armenians and some Western countries express concern over the future of cultural heritage sites in the region, since those historic treasures are once again made part of Azerbaijan. How are you planning to address those concerns of, let's say, Armenia and some Western countries, and Armenia's claims that your country had destroyed some religious sites?
Well, let me first to say that we are very disappointed with this attitude and the concerns raised by Western media and various cultural personalities with regard to the fate of the only Christian heritage in Karabakh. It gives us a bit some impression that there is no other heritage in these territories, or as if Islamic heritage in Karabakh is less valuable or important to humanity. So this is a totally wrong, I would say, a selective approach that we obviously don't share. In fact, we don't make any distinction between the heritage, and they are all equally important for humanity, particularly to us, as we consider this heritage, be it Christian or Islamic, doesn't matter, as our heritage and part and parcel of our identity and history.
Yes. So, Mr. Karimov, are you planning to call on international organizations, for example, to investigate the situation in the region? Because if I'm not wrong, I believe your country had been calling on UNESCO, for example, for years to investigate the destruction. Do you think they'll listen to this time? And what are the hurdles before an international investigation being launched in the region in terms of security, for example?
Of course, we are very interested that UNESCO and other international organizations will send and dispatch these technical missions to the liberated territories to verify those crimes and against our cultural heritage. So we, as you said, we kept inviting the UNESCO and international organization to these territories to check the situation with those heritage. So we will be very keen to work with the international organization to bring them on board and to see how the cultural heritage systematically were destroyed in the liberated, in the occupied territories, with only one reason that I should also highlight, is to erase every evidence of the presence of Azerbaijani population and civilization in this territory. So I have to mention that, because if you look at the cities like Agdam, Fizuli, that they became ghost towns. I mean, everything, nothing left there. The buildings, infrastructure, they completely destroyed by Armenian occupation. Mm-hmm. So we need to invite those international organizations and media and all other people that want to, they're very interested with the situation, to come and to see by their own eyes what happened in the Karabakh, yes, and what kind of cultural genocide and cleansing Armenians did in these territories.
So, Mr. Karimov, Shusha was invaded by Armenia in 1992, and during that time, Azerbaijanis made the 85.5% of that population, and they were forced to flee. So, when will they be able to return to their hometown, and how your government is planning to restart a process?
Well, just recently, our president signed a decree for inventorying and restoration of Shusha. And the big team of composing of different the government bodies are already in Shusha. They paid a visit to Shusha to check the situation and to come up with the action plan and to start this restoration, rebuilding process of the Shusha. Of course, when those infrastructural issues like the supply of energy, water, and other vital elements will be taken into account, they will be conducted and carried out, then of course we will bring back our population. And as I said, if population will come back, then this spirit of the Shusha also will be brought. And for us, it's absolutely important to bring back this spirit of Shusha, which was lost there for last 28 years.
Yes, it will
and we would like to organize these cultural festivities that Shusha was very famous with these cultural festivities like Harı Bülbül. This is very famous musical festival that we would like to again organize in Shusha.
All right, Mr. Karimov, unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you very much for joining us on Straight Talk.
Thank you very much for your invitation.
And that's all for this edition of Straight Talk with me, Ayşe Süberkaş. If you've got any comments, follow us and tweet us at Straight Talk TRT. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, take care and goodbye.